I'm Jason Walton, and I approve this message.
Paid for by friends of Jason Walton for Senate.
When the weather warms up, it's like a stampede, except instead of dust stirred up by hundreds of hooves, it's a cascade of phone calls to Advanced Window Products. This is Jeff Kaplan. Soon as the sun shines and the snow's gone, people want new windows and frames from Utah's #1 custom window maker, and the wait for installation grows longer. But right now, you can get near the front of the line by calling for a quote and get $2,500 off when you purchase 10 windows or more. That's on top of the incredible savings for the highest quality double-pane windows and frames, any style, any color. See, at Advanced Window Products, they actually build the windows here in Utah, they install the windows, and they guarantee them for life. There's no middleman, and they can pass the savings on to you. They even offer buy now, pay later. So get in before the wait grows longer and get the $2,500 off. Get your new windows this spring. Make the call. Advanced Window Products, 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100. Or visit AdvancedWindowsUSA.com.
You wouldn't know it, but most financial advisors are put in a box. I'm Jeff Jr. from Trajan Wealth, and I want to provide you a little insight about financial advisors. Most financial advisors have to sell what their company requires them to sell, and many advisors have to only adhere to what's called a suitability standard. A suitability standard is a limited standard of care, not requiring what's sold to be best, just suitable. Advisors with this loose standard often have limited investment and product selection. Trajan Wealth is held to a fiduciary standard, which is the highest standard of care in the advisory business. And that's just one of the many reasons we have billions of dollars under our care and attract clients from other advisors. Raise your standards today and call Trajan Wealth. Call 801-899-7600. That's 801-899-7600.
Advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor.
The life of a small business owner. Keeping the lights on, calling all the shots. And then there's workplace accidents. 500-degree ovens, rusty nails. Danger lurks around every corner. Workplace accidents can happen, but there is an easy way to keep your employees covered. Talk to your agent about workers' comp coverage from Pi, or go to piinsurance.com and get a quote. Safety first, then Pi Insurance. Individual rates, offerings, and savings may vary, subject to policy terms and conditions. Not available in all states and situations.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
The crash has finally been cleared northbound I-15 with that right lane open again after the Southtown Mall, and the delays are easing quickly. We have the final cleanup of a crash with possible injuries. 7800 South 1300 West. Save thousands on Bernina, quilting, serger, and sewing machines at Dave's Bernina, Provo, and St. George. Accessory bargains and free gift pack with machine purchase. 2.99% APR, 60-month financing offer. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
And a KSL weather, those strong winds will continue into tomorrow along the northern Wasatch Front. Otherwise, dry weather in northern Utah with additional rain and snow in the south. And right now, we're at 50 degrees under sunny skies. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, as we often say on this show, the words have meaning, the meaning matters, and the way those words are delivered carries the message. Presidents in particular have a challenge to make sure they get the right words, the right meaning, and convey the right message by the way they deliver it. Let's take a look beyond the headlines in terms of how does that actually get done. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Well, as we look at the way our leaders speak and communicate with the American people, it's always a fascinating thing to look under the hood in terms of how that actually happens. We actually spend a lot of time on this show looking at what is that process like? What is the strategy? What is the conversation? Who's in the room? How do those decisions get made? I saw this pop up in the Washington Post yesterday, and Tyler Pager is a great writer, a great thinker. Actually won the Gerald R. Ford Journalism Prize for distinguished reporting on the presidency in 2022, and has done a 3-part series in the Post that you need to check out all of these, because these are things we always talk about. How does a president take in information? How do they make decisions? And then how do they communicate it? And we want to dive into the 3rd part of this series as Tyler looks in particular how the current occupant of the Oval Office goes about the choosing of the right words and delivering the right words. Tyler, welcome to the program.
Thanks so much for having me.
Fantastic piece. And for our listeners, just kind of let's go right under the hood as we look at the current president. He's not the soaring rhetoric of a John F. Kennedy or a Ronald Reagan. Doesn't have the Barack Obama or the Bill Clinton in him. How does he go about the speech process, and what did you learn as you dug into that?
Yeah, so as you outlined, this is part of a 3-part series that has run over the last 3 weeks in the Washington Post. And the goal here was really to give the American people, voters, a more in-depth, comprehensive understanding about how the president does his job. So we did it sort of sequentially. We first looked at how he gets information, then how he makes decisions, and then ultimately how he conveys and communicates those decisions to American voters. And what we really learned about communication is how much time and preparation he puts in to perfecting the words of a speech. He goes through one, if not multiple, preps in the Oval Office where he sits behind the rest of his desk, gathers aides, and, goes word by word, line by line through the speech, and is really careful about the word choice that he wants to use. He's very obsessed with ensuring that people from Scranton, Pennsylvania, where he was born, people, by that he means people outside of the Washington, D.C. bubble, can understand what he's trying to do or what he's done, and he can connect with them. But what he doesn't do a whole lot of is practice the delivery of the speech. And I think one of the things that we, show in this piece is that there's some tension there over how much emphasis he puts on the specific words and details, and how comparatively little emphasis he puts on the delivery and the oration and the performance aspects of speech making, and how there's some concern that he needs to spend more time doing that.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting to look at that. And you learn so much about a president in that. I always go back to Jimmy Carter's speech that is often dubbed the malaise speech. And, of course, he was no great orator. But you read that speech. Some speeches are better read than said. And I found with President Biden that to be the case for the reasons you described in your piece in the Washington Post, is that he spends so much time meticulously going through those words that on paper you read it. It's very powerful, very compelling. You can see the process that gets him there. But the delivery, as you said, might need a little more massaging in terms of the delivery component.
Yeah, that's definitely something that interviews and conversations I had. I spoke to more than 100 people for this series, aides, advisors, adversaries. That really gave me this fuller picture of understanding about the president, the way that he does things. And I think, there are exceptions to that. The State of the Union was widely praised, including by some conservatives. His speeches on democracy in the run-up to the 2022 midterm elections. Also, his speech on the anniversary of the January 6th attacks. Those were all widely praised. But that is less of the norm for the president. One of the things that, we look at in this story is that most of the time he's speaking, those speeches he makes 2 to 3 times a week as he travels around the country, selling his agenda or touting a specific policy. Those are the speeches where he often struggles in terms of connecting, because he goes off on a tangent, or he stumbles over his words, or he just even concedes, as he did at a speech in 2021, I know this is a boring speech, which I think doesn't really help you connect with an audience when you're conceding that they may not be so interested in what you're saying.
Yeah, he did score massive authenticity points on that one, though. I think that was great. You also pointed out in the piece something that, the president has obviously dealt with a stutter issue when he was young. He memorized poems and limericks. and things to try to develop that. And it's interesting that he's kind of pulled back on that and is obsessed even more on the words of late as opposed to the delivery.
Yeah, the stutter is a really, core part of Biden's identity and has, come into his political identity. But one of the things that I've always been interested in the way that he talks about the stutter, he largely talks about it in past tense. Increasingly, he's acknowledged it, comes out more and more. But in 2019 and 2020, when he was running for president, he was very much adamant that the stutter was a thing of the past and one that he was not dealing with as much. But, I spoke to Michael Sheehan, who is a speech coach for Democratic politicians going back decades and has worked with the president since the early 2000s. And he also dealt with the stutter as a child. And he said in the story, it still comes up and it's not something ever that goes away completely. And so it is a reality that the president has to reckon with.
Yeah, this is great stuff. This is a great piece. You need to actually check out all three pieces of this series in the Washington Post. And Tyler, this is great work. I'm going to have you come back and we're going to hit the first two segments of your series because I think they're equally important in connecting all the dots and as it relates not only to President Biden but to other presidents. It's very, very instructive that way as well. Thanks for joining us today. Great stuff.
Thanks so much for having me, and happy to join again.
All right, again, that's Tyler Pager, White House reporter at the Washington Post, three-part series. And the thing about the series that I find so compelling is you've heard me talk about this before, that in a leadership role, you have to be able to do what we call the OODA loop, O-O-D-A, observe, orient, decide, and act. And that's really what Tyler has laid out in these three pieces in the Washington Post, and particular to President Biden. How does he absorb information? How does he orient it? How does he make that decision? And then how does he act? Particularly, how does he act with his words? And that whole communication process, the words have meaning, the meaning matters, how that meaning gets conveyed is what will carry the message and connect with the people. And that's going to continue to be a test for President Biden and for leaders everywhere. We'll continue to look at that as we move along on Inside Sources.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson.
Hi there, it's Congressman Blake Moore. My team and I are working hard to advance your priorities in Congress, from addressing federal budget reform on the House Budget Committee to pushing a bipartisan pro-family tax package on the House Ways and Means Committee. We've also enjoyed engaging with you at our recent in-person town halls and staff mobile office hours as we hear your questions, priorities, and concerns. I want to update you all on the things that we are working on and to take your questions. So be sure to join my telephone town hall on Wednesday, March 20th at 1 p.m. by dialing 833-305-1678. That's Wednesday, March 20th at 1 p.m. at 833-305-1678. Visit my website at blakemore.house.gov and follow me on social media at Rep. Blake Moore for details. I look forward to hearing from you then. Paid for by official funds authorized by the House of Representatives.
Shh, shh. Do you hear that? Tick, tock. That's the sound of time running out on the TikTok app. Or maybe it's the sound of your kids getting off their phones and going outside to feel grass. Or maybe they just find a new app to obsess over. Get updates on the fate of TikTok and your kids' future screen time this week on KSL News Radio.
Imagine it's the last ride, but your symptoms of irritable bowel syndrome with constipation, or IBS-C, are taking you for a ride. What should you do? Keep managing your constipation with belly pain the same old way? Or try getting ahead of your symptoms by talking to your doctor about treating it with Linzess, linaclotide. Linzess is a prescription medicine that treats IBS-C in adults. It's not a laxative. It's a once-daily pill that helps you get ahead of your symptoms. It's proven to help you have more frequent and complete bowel movements and helps relieve overall abdominal symptoms, belly pain, discomfort, and bloating. These symptoms were studied in combination, not individually.
Do not give Linzess to children less than 2. It may harm them. Do not take Linzess if you have a bowel blockage. Get immediate help if you develop unusual or severe stomach pain, especially with bloody or black stools. The most common side effect is diarrhea, sometimes severe. If it's severe, stop taking Linzess and call your doctor doctor right away. Other side effects include gas, stomach area pain, and swelling.
Imagine, what could relief from IBS-C mean for you? Talk to your doctor and say yes to Linzess. Learn more at linzess.com or call 1-800-LINZESS.
What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and if you have a drain that's clogged or backed up, after you've tried the plungers and products, the next step usually involves some kind of drain snake or cabling equipment. You see, sometimes the blockage is far enough down the line that you need special equipment that most homeowners just don't have. That's where the Drains Department at Any Hour Services can help. A drain snake can clear most blockages and get the water flowing again, and clearing blocked drains is what our Drains Department does day in and day out. So if you're a homeowner with a drain line that's clogged or backed up and you'd like one of our drain technicians to come and snake the line for you, it's only $29. Yep, you heard that right. Any Hour Services will snake any drain line with normal access for only $29. Sinks, showers, tubs, toilets, floor drains, laundry drains, even that sewer main line that connects to the city. We'll snake any line for just $29. For help with your drain issues, call Any Hour Services at 801-443-7700. You can Google Any Hour Services. You can even schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
For a limited time, open a 12-month certificate from Cyprus Credit Union and get 5.25% APY. Learn more at any branch or visit cypruscu.com.
Tim and Amanda.
Yes, KSL is a trusted institution. I mean, it's a 100-year-old institution, and I know that with that legacy comes a responsibility and a trust. But I want you to know, we have diverse voices at this radio station. Young people, we have people of all different ages, of all different cultural backgrounds, who put their 2 cents into what stories we cover from day to day, a voice that is given to those stories.
When I've been kicking around the Salt Lake City market for 40 years, I felt like I needed a decade of radio under my belt before I even attempted to climb that mountain. So as important as KSL is to you, you need to know that it's an important institution for both of us and something that we take very seriously, in the responsibility of providing the right news and information for you and your families every day and carrying on the tradition of this great radio station.
Utah's Morning News between 5 and 9 on KSL News Radio.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bonas. First, Utah has some unique terrain that speeds up those downslope winds when they come through. Second, a flight attendant bumped the button that sent a Boeing airliner into a temporary nosedive over the Pacific. And third, a former staffer in the Utah State University football program has been accused of murder in Tennessee. 50 degrees and sunny right now in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today, as always. Yesterday was interesting in that you had the Democratic Senate Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer, gave a speech on the Senate floor. That's not unusual. That's usually where the day begins in the United States Senate, after a prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. In case you didn't know that, that happens in both the Senate and the House every single day, the pledge and a prayer. It's a pretty good place to start. I think they should probably listen to those prayers a little bit more before they start the arguing and bickering for the day, because they're often pretty instructive. I've watched faith leaders from across the spectrum deliver those prayers, and it's something I wish more members of the Senate and the House would actually show up for and be there. I think they would actually benefit from having a good listen to some of those things that are being offered by the citizens of the nation. Well, yesterday, Chuck Schumer took to the floor to express his feelings about what's happening in Israel. Specifically, he criticized current Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, saying that the Prime Minister and his government are an obstacle to peace between Israel and its neighbors in the region. And, of course, the speech caused a bit of an uproar across the halls of Congress, into the White House, across the oceans, and right into the middle of the Middle East. And so we want to break it down just a little bit. A pretty stunning speech by Senator Schumer, not one you would typically hear in the well of the United States Senate. Senators, of course, have been critical of leaders of other nations. Rarely has an ally of the United States, a partner of the United States on many fronts, been told that they need to have an election to oust their current prime minister. And so let's break it down just a little bit. Senator Schumer began by accusing the prime minister of placing his own political interests above the best interests of Israel and the Israeli people.
Prime Minister Netanyahu has lost his way by allowing his political survival to take the precedence over the best interests of Israel. And as a result, he has been too willing to tolerate the civilian toll in Gaza, which is pushing support for Israel worldwide to historic lows. Israel cannot survive if it becomes a pariah. Prime Minister Netanyahu has also weakened Israel's political and moral fabric through his attempts to co-opt the judiciary, and he has shown zero interest in doing the courageous and visionary work required to pave the way for peace, even before this present conflict.
All right, now there's a lot to unpack there from Senator Schumer, some of which I agree with. We've been talking for months about the Netanyahu administration and what they've been doing as it relates to the judiciary in Israel. We've had lots of live coverage from in Israel, many of the protests that took place over the course of summer and into early fall, really all the things that took place right up until October the 7th when the focus of the country shifted and everything changed. And so there's plenty of criticism for the Netanyahu government, and again, particularly as it relates to the changes they were proposing in the judiciary. All of that, of course, have been placed on hold as the country has really come together after October the 7th, including having one of Benjamin Netanyahu's arch rivals join the war cabinet. So even having some of the opposition in the room was important. So I think Senator Schumer was trying to thread a pretty sticky wicket there in terms of calling out Benjamin Netanyahu, trying to acknowledge what took place on October the 7th, dealing with the innocent civilians that have been injured inside of Gaza as Israel has tried to prosecute and wipe out Hamas. Senator Schumer went on to call for elections to be held in Israel to give the people a choice for a new direction for the country.
I believe a new election is the only way to allow for a healthy and open decision-making process about the future of Israel. Israel has the right to choose its own leaders, and we should let the chips fall where they may. But the important thing is that Israelis are given a choice. There needs to be a fresh debate about the future of Israel after October 7th. In my opinion, that is best accomplished by holding an election.
And this is where the senator lost me. To say that the people of Israel needed a choice, well, they had a choice. They actually had a free and fair election, and they chose Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, they'll have other elections, and they'll have other opportunities to change course and change direction. But I can't imagine what would happen if another government, let's say the UK Parliament, stood up and said, we think the American people deserve a better choice, a different choice. And so they ought to have a new election today in America to choose a president. I don't think that would be received all too well in the well of the United States Senate or anywhere else in the country for that matter. And so I think it's a little interesting that Chuck Schumer went there to call for new elections in Israel. I think that's not his job. Nowhere do I see that anywhere. And actually, we'll have a different debate over what the actual job is of the majority leader in the Senate. Both Democrats and Republicans have ruined that. It is not supposed to be a political space for political speeches on the floor. It's supposed to be a management job, managing the process of getting bills to the floor so they can be debated, amended, voted on, and then passed over to the House or passed on to the president. And so that's part of the problem. And so I think that was wildly inappropriate of Senator Schumer to go down that space. Interesting, not long after Senator Schumer spoke, Mitch McConnell, the minority leader, stepped to the microphone there in the well of the Senate, and here's what he had to say.
It is grotesque and hypocritical for Americans who hyperventilate about foreign interference in our own democracy to call for the removal of a democratically elected leader of Israel. This is unprecedented. We should not treat fellow democracies this way at all.
Now, I don't often agree with Mitch McConnell, but I think he got that one right. I think it is pretty hypocritical for those in Washington, D.C., who are always hyperventilating about interference from foreign countries in democratically elected countries. So it is a little hypocritical, I think, for us to be calling for a new election in Israel when we would certainly have a major problem if the other countries of the world were calling on a new election here in the U.S. So I think that one's a tough one. I can see what Senator Schumer was trying to do politically trying to thread the needle between supporting Israel, dealing with the innocents and the humanitarian needs inside of Gaza, and trying to thread the needle from a political standpoint. But I maintain that is not your job. The job is policy. And so spending time on the floor of the United States Senate, that still has a lot of work that it's actually supposed to do, like border security, funding the government. I can rattle off a whole host of things that are much higher priority and things that are actually within their realm of responsibility and possibility, rather than just more rhetoric. That's the challenge. President Biden, for his part, answered a press question during his meeting with the president of Ireland, longstanding tradition going into St. Patrick's Day weekend. President Biden was asked about Schumer's speech. Here's his response.
Senator Schumer contacted my staff, my senior staff. He's going to make that speech. I'm not going to elaborate on the speech. He made a good speech, and I think he expressed a serious concern shared not only by him but by many Americans.
And so there is concern for sure. I'm sure that caused some ripples inside of the White House and the staff in terms of how they were going to navigate what Chuck Schumer was saying on the floor of the United States Senate. And then finally, I just want to get one word in from the current Prime Minister of Israel, as he was asked last week by Politico about the red lines that President Biden had talked about in terms of going into Rafah in their attempts to root out Hamas. And Prime Minister Netanyahu said he had his own red line. Here's what he said.
Oh, we'll go there. We're not going to leave them. You know, I have a red line. You know what the red line is? That October 7th doesn't happen again. Never happens again.
So a lot of positioning, a lot of posturing. There's a lot of things that we can criticize about Benjamin Netanyahu and his leadership. Real challenges. I don't think he does survive long term in terms of his role as prime minister. I think those days will be numbered. But that's the job of the Israeli people. That is not the job of the majority leader in the United States Senate. And so how we parse all of those out, again, the words have meaning, the meaning matters. And then how do we actually carry the message? That's what we got to get to. All right, we'll step aside for some bottom of the hour news. More Inside Sources coming up next, right here on KSL News Radio.
It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bonas. KSL's top story this hour. We have breaking news out of Atlanta. The lead prosecutor in the election interference case against former President Trump has stepped down. ABC News reports Nathan Wade had been involved in a relationship with the Fulton County attorney, Fani Willis. The judge ruled one or the other would have to step aside. Willis will be allowed to continue on the case. Without that, the judge said there would be an appearance of impropriety. Tornadoes killed at least 3 people in Logan County, Ohio. Blaine Schmidt says he was at his dad and grandmother's house in Lakeview, telling ABC News they shot shelter in the bathroom.
I was sitting there with my kids yesterday out that window saying, praise God, thank you, Lord, for my kids, for everything I got. And I was just so thankful to be here with my kids and be alive.
Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average down on the day. NASDAQ also down substantially today. And on the way, we'll be looking at the continued windy weather that we've had the last day or so. That's next. KSL News Time, 1:31.
It's a priority for us at this station to bring you all sides of a story and to talk about the news fairly, completely.
Get all the facts and be really aware. Utah's Morning News with us, Tim and Amanda.
Weekday mornings 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
Our friends at Hercules First Federal Credit Union, it's all about community. I love the way they focus not just on providing the transactions you need for your investments, for your banking, for all of those things that you do when it comes to your financials, but the education, the relationships, because that's what you do when you're part of a community. And at Hercules First Federal Credit Union, it has always been about community, always growing stronger together. They've been doing that since 1946. And right now, if you're a first-time home buyer, they have this powerful home court advantage loan. We know making a first home purchase is a big decision, lots of stress and uncertainty. Hercules Credit Union has you covered on all fronts to get rid of the stress, to help you make the best choices, not because it's a transaction, but because at Hercules you have a relationship that's going to make all the difference for you. You can find their locations in Taylorsville, Harriman, Riverton, or Salt Lake City, or as always with our friends at Hercules Credit Union, you can just find them online at herculescu.com.
New home for the new year? Sounds nice, doesn't it? What about new lowered rates? Now's the time to step into a gorgeous new Nilsson home with less commute times, easy access, and with rates that have dropped more significantly than all year. Less really is more in this case. Less maintenance, less commute, and less money per month. Move north with Nilsson Homes. Choose from beautiful townhomes to Rambler communities for all stages of life. Most of all, Nilsson Homes are move-in ready and close to what you love and enjoy with easy commutes. Nilsson Homes has been building across the Wasatch Front for over 45 years, accommodating all the things you need, combined with the things you love. Make sure to ask about special savings. Experience your new home for the new year. Visit Nilsson Homes Communities at nilssonhomes.com. NILSON homes.com. That's nilssonhomes.com.
Healthcare with human kindness is here. It's at Common Spirit Health. Hospitals, clinics, and caregivers all connected to advance healthcare in Colorado, Kansas, and Utah. Together, we have a common purpose, partnering with you in health and healing using powerful medicine, powerful technology, and the greatest power of all, human kindness. You'll know it when you see it, because human kindness is in every care site and in every caregiver. Common Spirit Health. Hello, human kindness.
Only one type of burger. For every pallet. Fries are extra. Large in size. We've got the shakes. Going over the brim.
Hey, this is Chris from JCW's. Put a positive, delicious spin on your day at any one of our 5 locations. In Lehigh, American Fork, Provo, South Jordan, or Harriman. JCW's, quality and a lot of it.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
It's a good drive on the Valley freeways, no problems there. But we do have delays both directions, 7200 south between State and I-15, and the final cleanup of an accident, 7800 south, 1300 west. Also a crash called out, 90th south, 2700 west. Need a perfect event venue? There's a place. This is the place, Heritage Park. Ideal for weddings, events, featuring 11 venues, beautiful grounds, affordability for any celebration. Call or visit thisistheplace.org. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
And our KSL weather, the strong winds will continue today and tomorrow along the northern Wasatch Front. Not, though, at the same level as last night. Otherwise, dry weather in northern Utah with additional rain and snow in the south. And right now, 52 degrees and sunny. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, we always like to get beyond the headlines and actually get underneath some of the things that happen, maybe not in those headlines or even in specific pieces of legislation, but things that often happen by rule in many of the departments of government. And sometimes that makes life better and sometimes it makes life harder. But the important thing is to shine a little light on what's actually happening and why. Well, at the beginning of the week, the Labor Department had new laws relating to independent gig workers. That's a big part of our economy these days. And we wanted to get underneath the hood of what those rules are, what they would do, how they might impact the future of work, especially for young people. Amanda Griffith is a contributor for Young Voices, PhD student studying political thought and international relations at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And Amanda, welcome to the show.
Hi there, Boyd. Thank you so much for having me on.
Fantastic piece at Reason.com, talking about President Biden's independent contractor rule and the evolution of work. For our listeners, just kind of give us the baseline.
Absolutely. So as you said, at the beginning of the week, the Labor Department passed a new independent contractor rule, which revises some of the previous legislation, or rather some of the previous regulations. Right now, what's going to happen is that there are 6 criteria that employers now have to use to determine whether a worker is an independent contractor or an employee. And these criteria are very, very vague. There's some thought that they are used and they've been imposed in such a way that really the only way that an employer can be on the safe side is to declare a once independent contractor and employee instead. This, of course, imposes a lot of costs on employers. Those costs redound across the market. And really, most importantly, it threatens the independence of gig workers who very often leave the traditional 9-to-5 format in favor of greater flexibility.
Yeah, and I think that's such an important thing. And I know there are some things, you pointed this out in your piece. There are a few senators that are looking at some amendments, some things that would go through to either repeal the rules or to force the rules to actually go through the legislative process. We criticize both sides of the aisle when things are done with a broad brush in the legislation that we hereby bequeath to the Department of Labor the ability to make rules and enforce them, because then they're not accountable in terms of what they actually do in the end. And then voters have no real recourse because you can't vote out somebody sitting in a cubicle somewhere. And so as you look at this, especially as it relates to young workers, kind of play that out, unpack that for us a little bit in terms of how this would play out, particularly with young workers and I think small businesses this impacts, who are trying to get some of that gig economy worker without having to take on the obligations of full-time employees.
Sure. So you're absolutely right that the small businesses are the ones who are going to be most significantly impacted. A lot of times the decision as to whether to classify someone as an independent contractor or an employee is a make or break decision for the business. It's estimated that employees are about 30% more expensive for a small business than an independent contractor. And also to your point, for young workers especially, oftentimes it is precisely the flexibility that makes gig work so appealing. You're able to put in a little bit of extra time if you have an additional payment coming up, or you can take a little bit of time off if you want to relax a little bit. This is critical, especially for young workers who've come into a working world that does provide for a little bit more autonomy. And that is across the board a good thing. Most workers prefer autonomy if forced to choose, prefer autonomy over pay and other benefits. And in fact, pay still wins out among part-time workers when you compare the median earnings of the average part-time gig contractor to the median earnings of the average part-time employee. So it really is the younger workers who are going to suffer, who prefer to have a side hustle and prefer to be able to call the shots, choose their clientele, choose when they work, choose when they're on and off the clock. And you're correct again that, it's going to be the small businesses and the employees who are just going to get started who are going to suffer the most.
Yeah, and I think that's an important one. We've talked a little bit over the last few weeks about another rule that was issued by the Biden administration dealing with apprenticeship programs, having very similar chilling effects, especially with small business owners. who have decided, you know what, it's not worth the risk of some kind of audit or some kind of government penalty if they don't do it, with all of the overhead and the paperwork and the checks that go with it. Obviously, there are reasons for some of these rules, but how do you see this kind of playing out? I think this is also a messaging challenge. You kind of alluded to this in your piece at Reason, that this is a bit of a fumble on the Biden administration side. What do you see as the path forward in terms of how do they navigate this?
Well, it's going to be difficult, and I think probably one of the main difficulties is that the larger businesses have the capacity to hash these things out in court, whereas the smaller businesses don't. As for the impact on the Biden-Harris administration, if they're able to paint this in a good light, then obviously this goes well for them. They can sweep this under the rug a little bit. But if people start to feel the squeeze across the economy, as they undoubtedly will, if more and more businesses are coerced into classifying workers as employees, that's going to hurt. And again, it's going to hurt young voters who are a core demographic for Joe Biden right now.
Yeah, no question about that. And give me one last thought as you project this forward. Often what happens when things are done either by executive order or by a rule in the administration or the agencies, often what happens is a lawsuit gets filed and then things start working their way through the court. Do you anticipate that in this particular instance, or how do you see that playing out?
It's a possibility. It's certainly the sort of thing that, could go either way, right? Either it can give the regulations a little bit more oomph if it doesn't go in favor of the business, or it can help the businesses. I would certainly want more visibility brought to this because it really is a very damaging regulation or series thereof for all parties involved, aside from labor unions, of course, who have a pretty significant role in getting this done.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. Great insight, great perspective, great writing, by the way. Amanda Griffith, a contributor for Young Voices, and a great piece. Check it out at reason.com. And Amanda, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Boyd. Have a wonderful day.
All right, that's Amanda Griffith, and just a fantastic piece. And it just shows you kind of the underneath what happens and the rules of unintended consequences. That often it sounds like we're trying to help, we're trying to protect workers in this case, and often it ends up hurting those that we're actually saying that the government's trying to help, and then it also impacts always small businesses in particular who can't hire a whole army of people to oversee the paperwork and to make sure all of the lawyer, lobbyists, and accounting things are taken care of to meet some of these new standards and rules that again were not voted on by members of Congress, but were signed into law or rule either by the president, by executive order, or by an agency rule. We'll continue to track all of this. It has big impact, especially for young voters, young workers. We'll keep tracking it. We'll step aside, coming right back on Inside Sources.
Derek Overstreet, founder of the New Millennium Group. We're a financial planning firm. Listen, we're fiduciaries. We have advisors standing by right now to take your call. That's 888-999-6370. 888-999-6370. The reason you're going to want to call is we're going to help you retire 3 to 5 years before you thought possible. Now, imagine how that would be if you could actually retire 3 to 5 years sooner than your plan was. The way we do this is by putting together a step-by-step plan, taking into consideration any rental properties that you have, any pension income that you have, your Social Security. Listen, we put that all together for you in writing. It will allow us to build your income based on inflation. Inflation has been rapidly rising. You and I both need a plan that whatever we start out our income at, in 5 or 10 years, we're going to need 40% more income. So if you're one of those people listening and you'd like a plan in writing, give us a call at 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370, or go to utahsfinancialplanner.com.
KSL Broadcast Group contests are open to participants 13 years of age and older that are residents of Utah, Idaho, Wyoming, and Nevada, unless otherwise specified. Employees or agents of the station, Bonneville International Corporation, or other area radio stations, or any entity associated with the contest may not enter. Persons who have won in the last 90 days from a station contest or event are not eligible. Full general contest rules are available at kslnewsradio.com.
Ladies, Dave's Bernina makes it easy for you to own a new Bernina quilting machine.
We're celebrating National Quilting Month with extraordinary pricing and offers.
At Dave's Bernina in Provo and St. George.
Saved on the Bernina Q Series quilting machine.
All machines are on sale with extra discounts.
Such as $5,999 on the Bernina Q16 on adjustable folding table, $8,999 on the Bernina Q16 on 10-inch studio frame. Take advantage of 2.99 APR financing for 60 months on select machines. Buy the all-new Bernina L890QE Serger. Receive a free gift package worth over $1,600.
During this sale, treat your sewing love to some sweet extras with special discounts and super savings on Bernina machines and accessories.
Special pricing on Bernina 475 and 770 Cape machines. A great value.
Dave's Bernina, 2017 North 550 West in Provo and 691 East St. George Boulevard.
IVC, Interventional Vascular and Vein Center, is having a Hello Spring special event on Saturday, March 23rd. This will be a free screening for varicose veins at their office in Provo. Don't let leg pain slow you down. Come and learn why starting now is ideal to get you ready for summer. IVC has been in business for over 20 years and has been voted the best vein center of Utah Valley for 10 years running. IVC's doctors, advanced practice providers, and sonographers will be on hand to answer your questions. So stop in to IVC on Saturday, March 23rd for a free varicose vein screening. Space is limited, so please RSVP right now. Let's spring new life into your step. Visit ivein.com. ivein.com. That's the letter I, VEIN.com to schedule your new year, new legs free screening at IVC. Because life starts when the pain stops.
Any Hour Services free furnace sale is going on right now. If you haven't scheduled your free estimate yet, do it now. Call Any Hour Services today or schedule online at anyhourservices.com.
Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson.
Our goal every day on Inside Sources is to help you divide the rage from the reason, elevate the conversation, connect the dots, and make the news make sense in your world. We have conversations with great thinkers, with great leaders, and great people who are just out there making a difference in the world. Now, we do talk about politics, but only so we can discuss society and culture. And then we explore society and culture so we can discuss principles and the people in America and the state of Utah who actually live them and apply them every day. We bring the best and brightest minds to the state of Utah, and we love to take the Utah model and send it out to our nation's capital and beyond. Every day on Inside Sources, you'll be part of that conversation. To help you understand things in a different way, we'll get you to think again about what you think you know, but most important, we're going to help you have confidence to have crucial conversations in your community and in your own home.
Join Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson, 1 to 3 on KSL News Radio.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, a former staffer with Utah State University's football team has been charged with killing his wife with poison. Second, one of the lead prosecutors in the election interference case against former President Trump has stepped aside. And third, Utah's Attorney General is joining Montana in an effort to uphold that state's ban on TikTok. Right now, sunny, 52 degrees in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Mom and Dad used to argue about everything, especially about Dad's drinking. It drove me crazy. It got so bad, I couldn't do my homework. I couldn't concentrate. I absolutely refused to let any of my friends come to our house for any reason. I would have been humiliated if anyone found out how much my dad drank and how loud my mom screamed at him. My family went from totally crazy to quiet, calm, and even peaceful. The only thing that happened is my mom started going to Al-Anon family groups. Her relationship with my dad really changed. I asked Mom if she would take me to her Al-Anon meetings, or to Alateen. I wanted to see if I could have a better relationship with my dad. I'm sure glad I did. If someone's drinking troubling you, you might be surprised at what you can learn in an Al-Anon or Alateen family group from people just like you. Call 1-888-4-ALANON or go to alanon.org.
Dave and Debbie.
I want our listeners to feel like they have an advocate,
that they have somebody that's going to fight for them, challenge the status quo or the pithy soundbite. We have a unique job where we have access to interviews and people that not everyone has. We take that seriously. So if we do feel like we're getting a spin, then we can challenge it. I love it when people tell me, I was just thinking about that question that you asked. I'm glad you asked that question. That's like the height of compliment.
I want our listeners to feel empowered to use the information that they've learned on the Dave and Dujanovic Show to help their families, to help make good decisions, help investigate other avenues to maybe protect their family's safety or protect their family's money. I'm hopeful our show leaves our listeners with a sense of empowerment so they can make the best decision possible for themselves and for their families.
Listen for Dave and Dujanovic 9 to noon on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It is great to be with you on a Friday, and your Friday's about to get better. I've been looking forward to this all day long. Sunday at the Salt Lake Tabernacle, there is an extraordinary interfaith event showcasing over a dozen different cultural presentations. And I have two people, one who's been a longtime friend, Carol Makita from KSL TV, and she's the MC for the evening, and a friend I haven't met yet, but I've been dying for this conversation, Josie Stone, former nurse and teacher, and she is the chair of the event. This is an event that goes all the way back to 2002, and Josie, let's start with you. Welcome to the show, and this is a rich history going back to the 2002 Olympics. You've seen the whole movie. Tell us about why this is so important.
Yes, good afternoon. It's a pleasure for me to be here with you. Yes, it does have a rich history. And yes, it was at the time of the Olympics in 2002 that it was a committee that was formed because there is a charter, a statement for the hosting cities for the Olympics that they are required to provide faith opportunities for all of the athletes and their trainers when they come. And so 2 years before the Olympics, a group got together. I wasn't here then. And they had to, call up all sorts of clergy people and people that could handle all of the different faiths, as you can imagine, that come. And I think normally those committees are disbanded after the event, but here it was so successful that it stayed. And so I actually moved here in 2003, and I joined them later in that year and have been with the Salt Lake Interfaith Roundtable ever since.
Oh. I love that. It is an extraordinary gathering of people, and it's one of those evenings where you just have holy envy all the way around. You can look at all of the different traditions, say, oh, I love that. Oh, I wish I had more of that in my life. Carol Makita, you've been following faith in our community and around the world, and you've watched this and been part of this for a long time now.
It has been my pleasure. I actually covered the first musical tribute event in 2002, and so that stayed with me, and for years now I've been honored to MC this event. A beautiful evening, a touching evening. Credit goes to Josie and all of the members of this committee who stay together. They are friends, and I say this without reservation. The friendship is so deep that they love one another, and that is the basis that holds them together. If only every city in this country would do the same thing.
Oh, there's nothing more important. It's those sticky relationships, and these interfaith conversations are such a big part of that. If you're just joining us this Sunday at 6 p.m. at the Tabernacle on Temple Square, you just need to show up. It's open to the public. Everyone should come and experience just a wide range. And Josie, give us just a little feel and flavor for what people will experience when they come to this interfaith event on Sunday evening.
Well, it is a marvelous event and very humbling in a way. And we'll begin with the opening devotions. In fact, we begin with the organ being played by Bonnie Goodliff. And then we will have the call to prayer from the Muslim tradition and the Jewish shofar devotion. And then after the invocation, which is being given by Pritpal Singh, who is with the with the Sikh community. And then everything is roused up because we welcome the Utah Pipe Band first, and they come in from the back of the tabernacle, and music is loud and it's exciting, and that's just a very favorite part of the thing.
Oh, I love it. Anytime you can get bagpipes into the tabernacle is a good day. And Carol, I want to go to you. You and I were having a conversation before we came in, and you talked about how the rest of the world could look in on this event and see Muslims and Jews coming together in a most extraordinary. We need a lot more of this, not just in our community, but around the world.
But around the world, this has happened every year, as Josie can attest. And one year in particular, children, both Muslim and Jewish children, stood side by side singing. That was absolutely glorious. It is, as I said, an opportunity for people to get to know one another, to understand the basis of every faith, to throughout the year have an opportunity to attend services of another faith with a friend and get to know what it is this particular group in our community believes and what one has in common with this. And that, I think, Josie, you can attest to. That's what has built this up, is the finding of everything that we agree upon.
Yeah, that interconnectedness is so powerful. And Josie, just in our last minute here, as you have experienced this, what's the one thing that everybody ought to know about this extraordinary evening in 6 p.m. at the Tabernacle Interfaith event? What's it that everyone should be thinking about, or what should this event cause us to do different as a result?
Well, we hope that when people come and they see the diversity and the great effort that is put into these wonderful presentations, that they realize that we are really part of this colorful picture. And so we should enjoy that, and we should respect that, and we should look around our community and see, are there people of different faiths that we have not met? Have we been to their place of worship? But is there a way we can connect? And we hope that when people leave, they will have that sense of wanting to connect with these marvelous groups that have just shown all of their talent and hopefully improve our society even more.
Fantastic. And Carol, I'm going to give you a 30-second last word of what has surprised you as you've watched this play out over the years?
I think the emotion that each presentation brings. Yes, there is color, there is beauty in the dance, there is beauty in the music and what is being sung. But by the end of the evening, people have their arms around one another, and we're all singing Let There Be Peace on Earth. And there is not a dry eye in the house. Am I correct, Josie?
That is so true. Always. Always.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I am so glad to add Josie as new friend for the day and Carol as longtime friend.
Yes.
Thanks to both of you and everyone. Just put this on your calendar for Sunday, March 17th, 6 p.m. at the Tabernacle on Temple Square. You will have an interfaith experience that will change you. It will change you. So be there 6 p.m. It's open to the public, faiths of all kind, music, dance, all the things that connect us and help us not see across our differences, but to see the divinity in one another. That wraps up hour number 1 of Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. We'll step aside for some top of the hour news. Hour number 2 coming up next. Stick around.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. A former Utah State football staff member is being charged with first-degree murder. Blaze Taylor was a defensive analyst for the Aggies. KSLSports.com reports his name has since been removed from the team's website. A grand jury in Nashville indicted Taylor in the poisoning death of his girlfriend, who was pregnant. Taylor was arrested here in Utah on Wednesday. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Lead prosecutor in the election interference case against former President Trump and his co-defendants. Nathan Wade has resigned now. The judge in Atlanta, Scott McAfee, refused to disqualify Fulton County District Attorney Fonnie Willis, but ruled that either she or Wade must step aside. Here's ABC's Olivia Rubin.
This means that the case will move forward, essentially effective immediately, because she is not stepping down, so there is no need for the case to go over to an independent body, to have a new prosecutor assigned.
And looking at your money at this moment, the Dow and the NASDAQ both down on this Friday afternoon. Coming up, it looks like we'll see more wind and breezy conditions for the next day or so. That's next. KSL News Time, 2:01.
Here's a way to get breaking news updates anywhere you go.
At the store or in a work meeting, you can get breaking news on your phone.
You can quickly read it, swipe, or click for more. It's super discreet, super fast.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
They say it takes 10,000 hours to become an expert. You may not have that kind of time for weatherization, energy efficiency, and appliance rebates, but we do. Dominion Energy's ThermWise program has experts who know where and how to save money. They help homeowners and businesses find simple ways to conserve natural gas and rebates through upgrades that may help to save even more. We put our energy into helping you conserve it, so you can spend your 10,000 hours becoming an expert in what matters to you. Start with a home energy plan at thermwise.com.
At Fisher Investments, we may seem like other money managers, but we're different.
What makes you so different than the rest of us?
We ensure clients receive unparalleled service at every step of the relationship.
Tell me more.
Our investment counselors focus on service over sales, prioritizing clients' needs.
How do you make money?
We don't sell any commission-based products. We have a simple management fee based on the value of our client's portfolio. So we do better when our clients do better.
What about client portfolios?
We get to know each client, their finances, family, health, lifestyle, and more, and then we tailor a portfolio based on their specific goals and needs.
Your clients really come first then, huh?
Yes, we make them a top priority. Our goal is helping them achieve a comfortable retirement.
Wow, maybe we are different.
At Fisher Investments, we're clearly different. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com.
Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
When the weather warms up, it's like a stampede, except instead of dust stirred up by hundreds of hooves, it's a cascade of phone calls to Advanced Window Products. This is Jeff Kaplan. Soon as the sun shines and the snow's gone, people want new windows and frames from Utah's #1 custom window maker, and the wait for installation grows longer. But right now, you can get near the front of the line by calling for a quote and get $2,500 off when you purchase 10 windows or more. That's on top of the incredible savings for the highest quality double-pane windows and frames, any style, any color. See, at Advanced Window Products, they actually build the windows here in Utah, they install the windows, and they guarantee them for life. There's no middleman, and they can pass the savings on to you. They even offer buy now, pay later. So get in before the wait grows longer and get the $2,500 off. Get your new windows this spring. Make the call. Advanced Window Products, 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100. Or visit AdvancedWindowsUSA.com.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
We have a crash in South Salt Lake, southbound on State Street at 3300 South. Only a right lane of traffic is open to all drivers. Save thousands on Bernina, quilting, serger, and sewing machines at Dave's Bernina, Provo, and St. George. Accessory bargains and free gift pack with machine purchase. 2.99% APR, 60-month financing offer. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
And a KSL weather. Those winds will continue today and tomorrow along the northern Wasatch Front, but not at the same level as last night. Otherwise, dry weather in northern Utah, but additional rain and snow in the south. Right now, 52 degrees and sunny. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Of course, we continue to track all the headlines as it relates to presidential politics. But as we always kick off the hour, We want you to think again about what you think you know, and here's something that might get you to think again. What if there was a similarity in former President Donald Trump's approach to his party and former President Barack Obama's approach to his? Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
A brilliant piece in The Atlantic by David Graham, staff writer at The Atlantic, looking at an interesting mistake that many Democrats felt President Obama made during his run, especially dealing with the National Party, and one that it appears that former President Trump is going to go down a very similar path. And David, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for that very kind introduction.
It's a great piece. It's incredibly well researched. It's incredibly well written, and it just got me thinking of these are all the classic mistakes that you just don't want to make if you're looking at the long game. But let's start for our listeners who maybe didn't get out of bed this morning thinking about corollaries between Trump and Obama. But give us some perspective there in terms of President Obama and his focus in terms of the Democratic National Committee.
Yeah, when Obama came into office, he obviously was not sort of a creature of the party at the time. He was the insurgent candidate against Hillary Clinton in 2008. And the way he approached the DNC was to sort of treat it as, an instrument of his reelection campaign. He moved its headquarters, many of its functions rather, to Chicago, and he reoriented it just around reelecting him in 2012. And obviously that worked well for him in 2012. He did get reelected. But the Democrats got shellacked down the ballot throughout his presidency. They lost many state houses. They lost governorships. And so the results, by and large, for the DNC were not necessarily as good, even if they were good for Obama himself.
Yeah, and I think this is so indicative of not just political parties, but organizations in general. When you have a very leader-centric organization, might be okay as long as that leader's in there. But what happens down ballot or what happens in the rest of the organization is the real tale. And now we're sort of seeing same song, different chorus as it relates to the Trump campaign. How is that shaping up?
Yeah, we've seen a lot of focus on the way Trump is reworking the RNC, and he's sort of taken it over. He's, appointed a new chair, effectively appointing his daughter-in-law as vice chair, and one of his top campaign ads as the chief operating officer, chief of staff. I think there's been a lot of sense that this is something new and unprecedented. It's unusual for him to appoint his daughter-in-law. But I was watching this and thinking, what I'm seeing is very similar. Once you become president or former president, you start to think about everything in terms of your own political fortunes. And I think, folks don't necessarily think of the parties as a broader thing, as something that has to win races at every level. And they don't think of how that supports them. In Obama's case, having a weak state party and weak results in Congress made it harder to implement his agenda. And I think Trump saw some of the same thing. He saw bad results in the midterm elections, and that made it harder for him to do the things he wanted to do. So there's just a sort of myopia that seems to attach to presidents and presidential candidates.
Yeah, I think that's so fascinating. And it's both down ballot and then ultimately legacy impacting. If you look at the end of the Obama administration and then what should have been a pretty easy transition, everyone would have thought, to the Clinton campaign and Hillary Clinton's run in 2016. And it just didn't translate because of what the structure had become in a very Obama-centric universe. And again, we're seeing the same thing play out now as it relates to the former president. And to me, that just has to be someone in one of those committees on either side of the aisle has got to be figuring out that this is not good long-term strategy.
You've heard people, even in the case of Obama, when he moved a lot of functions to Chicago in late 2008, early 2009, you had some people in the party saying this is going to hurt us down the line. And you hear voices on the Republican side saying that too. I think a lot of this is just about an era where parties are weak. The politics tend to revolve around charismatic candidates, and the party committees don't have the influence they once did. They don't choose candidates in the same way, and they don't have the same power to influence things. And as a result, whether it's Trump or Obama, a major leader has an ability to sort of wrench things to his liking, even if it's not good long-term thinking.
Yeah, and play that out, unpack that for us a little bit in terms of kind of that slashing of the national footprint. You mentioned that in terms of former President Obama. Now we're clearly seeing that with the Republican National Committee, slashing some of that national footprint. How do you see that playing out, both in the course of the context of 2024, but also beyond?
Well, it's a little bit hard to say when these elections are so nationalized. But I think where you get worried if you're a Republican who is nervous about this race is, well, what happens at the state level in these really close elections? I look at a state like Arizona or a state like Michigan, these states that are really close, that went for Biden in 2020, but not by a lot. And those are states where, I think Trump has a reasonable chance to pick them up. But that requires a party that has its eye on the ball and is well organized, can do good turnout operations when you have a narrow margin. And if you are cutting costs at the national level and you're not having good leaders at the state level, it's harder to get those things done. And so I think that's where the danger to Trump is most immediately.
Yeah, and I've been dying to get your take on this because we've gone through this era, and you described it in your piece in The Atlantic, that it really everything has become national. It used to be everything was local. Now everything feels national. But as we get past 2024, clearly there will be shifts, whether it's a second Biden administration and then he'll be done, or a second Trump administration and then he will be done. Will there be a moment where everyone says, you know what, we got to get back to local, and that's where the real action and the real impact can be?
It seems like there's a little bit of a pendulum there, and whichever party is doing well in Washington neglects the state level recently, and vice versa. So when Obama was winning 2 terms, Democrats were weak at the state level. Since the Trump era, Democrats have made big gains at the state level, and they're putting more emphasis on winning state legislative races. We'll see if that trend continues. But it seems like no party is able to do both things at once. The kind of walking and chewing gum problem, I guess.
So someone's got to figure out how to do that. Walking and chewing gum should be possible. I think best and brightest somewhere that should come into play. Last thing, real quickly, before I let you go, David, what else are you keeping your eye on as these races play out? Again, very national focus, but what else are you keeping your eye on? What are we missing underneath some of those headlines?
Well, I've been really focused on Trump's trials and how that's going to affect the vote. Whether we see any trials before the election and how voters respond to them. You see voters saying they would not vote if Trump is convicted. I'm not sure that's as strong as people say. The other thing I'm looking at a lot in the last few days, there's been interesting focus, I think, from some data analysts on Democratic losses in the minority vote, which I think could be a really big dynamic, not just in 2024, but really going forward in terms of what the parties look like.
Fantastic. Great perspective. This is a piece you want to go check out at The Atlantic. David A. Graham, staff writer at The Atlantic. And we're seeing history repeat itself. Amazingly, it just keeps coming back around. David, thanks so much for making time for us. We look forward to having you back on the show.
Oh, thank you.
Again, that's David Graham, staff writer at The Atlantic. The piece is called Trump Repeats Obama's Mistake. And it's so interesting. We often talk about this leader-centric organizations rarely sustain any kind of legacy. Because if everything revolves around that one person, what happens when that one person is removed? Or if the leader's only worried about being the leader and holding on to being the leader as long as possible, they're not going to do the hard work and heavy lifting that's required to build a culture, an organization, a strategy, a structure, and a set of disciplines that can sustain it. And we have seen both the Democrats and the Republicans fail in that area, and it's negatively impacted the conversations we're having in the country. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson.
There are products that offer up to a 20% upfront bonus just for opening an account and up to 12% per year for retirement income. I'm Jeff Jr. with Trajan Wealth, and I've heard from other advisors saying this is too good to be true. No, it's not. We are one of the few who can offer products like these because we're independent. We're not registered with a broker-dealer who tells us what we have to sell, and we don't have to answer to a board of directors who prioritize shareholders over clients. So, is an upfront bonus up to 20% and 12% per year growth for income too good to be true? For most advisors, yes, but not Trajan Wealth. The fact that many of our clients come from other financial advisors is a testament to our value. Experience the Trajan Wealth difference for yourself. Call 801-899-7600. That's 801-899-7600.
Guarantees are based on the claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company.
Are you using the KSL News Radio app to listen to your favorite shows whenever you want? You can podcast Utah's morning news even after it's finished at 9. You can listen to David Dujanovic or Boyd Matheson. Just click on the podcast tab. And you can stream Jeff Kaplan live between 3 and 7 right from the player. All of those shows, plus the KSL Greenhouse and Cougar Sports Saturday, they're on the app for KSL News Radio. KSL News Radio.
Do you know how to tell if a clogged drain is something to worry about or not? What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and I understand it's annoying and inconvenient, but sometimes a clogged drain can be a sign there's a more serious issue with your sewer main line. If the drains in the lowest level of your home aren't draining, or you flush a toilet and it comes up somewhere else like a shower or a floor drain, I'm urging you to look at this as more than just an annoyance. The last thing I want you to experience is a sewer backup. If you're a homeowner experiencing any of these issues, the first step would be to snake the line to see if it's just a blockage, which one of our drain techs can do for only $29. Yep, you heard that right. Any Hour Services will snake any drain line with normal access for only $29. Sinks, showers, tubs, toilets, floor drains, laundry drains, even that sewer main line that connects to the city. We'll snake any line for just $29. For help with your drain issues, call Any Hour Services at 801-443-7700. You can Google Any Hour Services. You can even schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Paid for by government.com.
Did you hear? A recent stash of $10 gold Liberty coins from the 1800s has been found. These gorgeous gold coins are as bright and shiny as the day they were struck in the late 1800s, and less than 50 of these gold coins are available. Coin experts are calling this gold find an incredible opportunity. Call 1-800-473-3993, and you are guaranteed a $10 gold Liberty coin minted by the U.S. Mint in the 1800s, but with extremely limited availability. You must call now. These gold Liberty coins from the 1800s are still in uncirculated condition. That is history you can hold in your hand. To learn more, call 1-800-473-3993. Call now and you'll receive a free American Coin Collector's Bonus Package, a $40 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-473-3993 now to secure your $10 gold Liberty coins dated from the 1800s before they sell out. That's 1-800-473-3993.
For a limited time, open a 12-month certificate from Cyprus Credit Union and get 5.25% APY. Learn more at any branch or visit cypruscu.com.
Jeff Kaplan.
I'm energized by breaking news. First of all, because it's right now, and second of all, because in many cases the audience needs to know. There's no more important service that we can provide, and I find it critically important to get more details to the audience as quickly as possible. There's nothing more energizing than that for me. Not at all. The most important thing we do is breaking news. I am gratified that so many people listen to me every afternoon on KSL, but what they don't know is that there are so many people behind the scenes making it happen, checking on the traffic, answering the phones, making the calls, talking to the newsmakers. They're out in the street, into the field to get the raw information, and then putting it all together so that I can sit in front of a microphone and be a source of information every afternoon. But there are so many people who make it happen. That's what you don't know.
Ride Home with Jeff Kaplan, weekdays 3 to 7 on KSL News Radio.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, a former staffer with USU's football program has been charged with murder in Tennessee. Second, Bad Bunny is suing a bootlegger who's been selling video of a concert in Salt Lake City. And third, the election interference case against former President Trump in Georgia can move ahead now that one of the lead prosecutors has resigned. 52 degrees and sunny right now in Salt Lake City. We're back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson, and of course it is a big election year, but as we often point out on this show, we hyperventilate about what's happening at the federal level and what's happening in presidential politics, but what happens in your local community is where the rubber hits the road, and that's going to impact you, your family, your local schools, and your community. And so we want to talk about some of those races that matter, and some of them might actually give you a think again moment of surprise in terms of how big they actually are. One of those is actually the Salt Lake County Council race, and currently in the at-large C category there. We have Rochelle Morris, a Republican, is running for that seat and joins us live in studio. Rochelle, welcome to the show.
Hey, it's great to be on the show this afternoon. Thanks for having me, Boyd.
So as you decided to get into this, I think it's safe to say this was not on your flight plan. You give us a little background in terms of your business experience, what you've been doing, and then why in the world are you running for the city council?
Yeah,
the county council. Excuse me, Salt Lake County Council.
Yeah, county council.
Get you in the right
I know.
race here.
SLCO versus SLC. It gets confusing, and I feel for the voters. I mean, there are voters in Salt Lake City who have told me, "Hey, Rochelle, I wish I could vote for you in this race, but I don't live in Salt Lake County." It's like, no, actually, you
are
live
in Salt Lake County.
Yeah, my background, I'm a descendant of Utah pioneers on both sides of my family. So my great-great-great-grandparents helped settle and build this state. And I'm the second of 7 children, aunt to 16 nieces and nephews who I love. And money was something that was tight in our home growing up, and actually was on the reduced lunch program in elementary school. And in the 6th grade, my mom decided that my brothers and I needed to figure out how to solve for lunch, that she did not want the government to solve that lunch problem for us anymore. And she wanted us to see if we could figure it out ourselves.
Wow.
So I ended up selling gum out of my backpack in the 6th grade. And that's how I started paying for lunch. And I've been an entrepreneur. I've been making money for myself ever since the 6th grade. I'm the first woman on my mom's side of the family to get a college degree, so I got a full ride to BYU, which I'm so eternally grateful for that experience. I got a job with Goldman Sachs right out of school. I've been a professional investor for 18 years, and so I've stewarded billions of dollars of assets. And when you look at the Salt Lake County Council and its number one role for our county, it is overseeing the purse strings on a $1.9 billion annual budget.
Yeah, I just want everyone to pause for a second and absorb that, because it's something that we often don't think about when we think about county council. We don't think of that size, nor do we think of the size of the district. This is larger. This is almost twice the size of a congressional district. You have about 1.2 million voters in the county. And so having that and that kind of budget, give us some sense in terms of that stewardship. I love that you use the word stewardship. We use that a lot on this show in terms of what the role and responsibility is on that county council.
Well, and I'm not here to criticize any specific member of the council. I really appreciate the mayor-council form of government and that there are 9 members of the council. But when you look at the people who are currently serving on the council, none of them are professional investors by background. And yet they're literally making financial decisions on behalf of all of us taxpayers in our county. And as you put it, 1.2 million people. So when you look at the makeup of the council, and I think it's important for voters to understand this, there's 9 seats. 6 of those seats are district seats. And so those 6 individuals represent different parts of the county, but the 3 at-large seats represent the entire county. And so there's 1 seat that's up for that, the C seat. Democrat Jim Bradley has been serving in that seat for 24 years. He is retiring. So this is the largest open seat race in the state of Utah that the Democrats are defending this year.
Yeah. Oh, fascinating. And I love the fact that you're looking at this not about who you're running against, but what you're actually running for. I think that's a big part of the process in terms of understanding why you're in a race. And so I am going to ask you, why are you in this race?
Yes. Well, no, I come from the private sector. I spend my life making investments in early stage companies, primarily software companies, electric vehicle companies. I know that the private sector is where innovation and growth happens. And I was totally enjoying my life as a private sector woman. I received a phone call in the month of November from a senior lawmaker in the state of Utah, and she brought up this race to me. And she said, Rochelle, Jim Bradley's retiring, and this is an opportunity to have a Republican sit in the seat. And when I'm looking at a Republican who can win in Salt Lake County and who can serve Salt Lake County well, she's like, you're the one. I've seen your brain in action. I've seen you in the community in action. And so as I looked at the job description of what a county council member would be,
Don't you hate it when it's right?
I felt the stewardship. I felt
Yeah.
that responsibility of, wait a second, I actually can in my career now give my Tuesdays for the next 6 years to the county.
Yeah.
And give my brain and my skills of looking at balance sheet optimization.
Yeah.
And it's not just about cutting taxes. It's also looking at the full balance sheet, all of the properties, all of the assets, and thinking, how can we increase revenue? How can we increase cash flow? How can we increase tourism money coming into the county? Because the more that we can optimize for revenue coming into the county, the less of a burden it is on our taxpayers.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. And I'm sure you are learning as you go along here the rough and tumble of the political world inside. It's a little different even from a Goldman Sachs experience in terms of getting that. And if you're just joining us, we have Rochelle Morris on with us. She's in studio with us today. She is running for the at-large C seat there in the Salt Lake County Council. And Rochelle, I've asked every political candidate, from people running for president of the United States to mayor to council to everything in between. Politics is hard. It's rough and tumble. Sometimes it's just exhausting, exasperating. It's all the things. And so the question that I always ask is, what will make all of this worth it, even if you get to the first Tuesday of November and you don't get the result that you want?
Well, right. Obviously, I'm running to win. And really excited about the almost 200 donors who've contributed to our campaign and all of the thousands of people who've already joined Team Rochelle in some form or fashion. So, number one, I'm running to win. But number two, I am falling in love with Salt Lake County and all of the different cities and communities inside of the county. And when you think about Cottonwood Heights, and when you think about West Valley City, and when you think about Harriman, in South Jordan, in Salt Lake City, every community has just a little bit of a unique culture.
Yeah.
And but just really good people and good, hardworking people. And that's what Utah is, you know? And it does not matter if you are a young family in Harriman, right? Or empty nesters in Sandy. Just people in this county are great. And every single day, I meet more residents in our county, and I'm just falling in love with the people. And I also have come to the conclusion that there's better food on the west side of I-15 in Salt Lake County.
See, that's breaking news there. Well, we will highlight that. That is fantastic. Rochelle Morris, a Republican candidate for Salt Lake County Council, at-large seat C. Rochelle, thank you so much for joining us today. I know this is the beginning of the road there. We look forward to the journey with you and with others that are running in this particular race as we have the important conversations and what is happening in community. I think Rochelle got it right in falling in love with the people. You can be pessimistic about a lot of places around the country. It is really hard to be pessimistic about what's happening in the state of Utah. Problems, yes. Challenges, for sure. But we have both leaders and citizens who are willing to engage in a different kind of conversation. Rochelle, best of luck to you. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
All right. We're going to go ahead and step aside for some bottom of the hour news. More Inside Sources coming up next on KSL News Radio. Stick around.
I'm Dave Cawley, investigative journalist and host of the podcast Cold. In October of 1985, a woman named Cherie Warren left work at a busy Salt Lake City office
to meet her estranged husband at a downtown auto dealership.
She never made it home. Cherie's car surfaced weeks later in Las Vegas.
In the parking lot of a hotel casino.
No one knows how it got there.
Strange. It was strange.
Both Cherie's estranged husband and her boyfriend raised suspicion for investigators.
I kind of thought that he might have done something.
But no arrests were ever made. In Cold Season 3, we dig into double lives, make new connections in the case, and examine the difficulty raised by reasonable doubt.
We want answers just as much as anyone else.
They have creeps like that now too, so nothing's changed.
That's the new Cold Season 3, The Search for Cherie, now available anywhere you get your podcasts.
It's 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top local story this hour. The bones of a man who went missing in 2021 have been found now in Grand County. The sheriff's office was told about the bones in the Book Cliffs area in the northeastern part of Grant County. The state medical examiner's office was able to identify the bones as the remains of Timothy Boone, who disappeared after taking his dog into the Santa Fe Swell about 3 years ago. They don't suspect foul play. Bad Bunny is suing a YouTuber for posting bootleg videos of his performance in Salt Lake City last month. 10 songs from his show at the Delta Center were posted by Eric Garone from Spain. Bad Bunny wants $1.5 million for copyright infringement and violating U.S. bootlegging laws. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Food is now starting to reach Gaza by sea, and ABC's Andy Field has the latest.
The World Central Kitchen shipping more than 100 tons of food and water to Gaza on an open-armed ship from Cyprus. Israeli Defense Forces helping get that humanitarian aid on shore.
The United States still plans to build a floating dock to bring in more aid shipments by sea. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average closing trading today down 190 points, NASDAQ down 155, S&P 500 was down 33. And the wind is not quite done blowing along the Wasatch Front. That's next. KSL News Time, 2:31.
News doesn't just mean information or dates.
It's the story of our local history being told in real time.
Be a part of the story. This is Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
We hope to be a part of your story. We have you covered on KSL News Radio.
Hi, this is Doug Wright. Over the years, I've talked a lot about hard water. It takes years off the life of water heaters and other appliances in your home. Leaves scum on the shower walls, and you almost need a jackhammer to remove that. I've talked about how Kinetico of Utah, an authorized Kinetico dealer, their water softeners are maintenance-free. You just don't need adjustment, and they do the job with 2/3 less salt than other softeners. But today, I want to talk about the exhilarating feeling of stepping into a hot bath or shower and feeling that pure, soft water cascade over your skin. It feels like every pore in your body wants to stand up and start singing. And afterward, there are no itchy hard water deposits sticking all over you. You really should look into a soft water system from Kinetico of Utah, an authorized Kinetico dealer. You can learn more about Kinetico by giving them a call at 801-576-8600 or log on to Softwater Utah. Kinetico of Utah, an authorized Kinetico dealer. Then sit back and enjoy your shower even more.
I'm Jason Walton, candidate for U.S. Senate. I'm recording from the Tucson sector of our southern border, and nobody's here. Our government should defend our territory. But President Biden, Mitch McConnell, and career politicians are funding war in other countries while the cartels are waging unchecked war here on American soil. I'm standing up to build the wall, end catch and release, and secure the border. Stand with me. I'm Jason Walton, and I approve this message.
Paid for by friends of Jason Walton for Senate.
Looking for a secure retirement plan without market risk? Look no further. Lyle Boss, president of Boss Financial, specializes in no market risk retirement strategies with guarantees of principal, guaranteed growth, and lifelong income. Join Lyle right here each Saturday and Sunday for his Safe Money radio show, and call him now at 855-355-SAFE for your complimentary customized Safe Money information kit and Safe Money book. Nothing but upside here at 855-355-SAFE.
IVC, Interventional Vascular and Vein Center, is having a Hello Spring Special event on Saturday, March 23rd. This will be a free screening for varicose veins at their office in Provo. Don't let leg pain slow you down. Come and learn why starting now is ideal to get you ready for summer. IVC has been in business for over 20 years and has been voted the best vein center of Utah Valley for 10 years running. IVC's doctors, advanced practice providers, and sonographers will be on hand to answer your questions. So stop in to IVC on Saturday, March 23rd for a free varicose vein screening. Space is limited, so please RSVP right now. Let's spring new life into your step. Visit ivein.com. ivein.com. That's the letter I, VEIN.com to schedule your new year, new legs free screening at IVC. Because life starts when the pain stops.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon Here's Ricky Meese.
Already some heavy and slow traffic southbound I-15 approaching the south interchange on the way to Midvale, and a crash at 90th South at about 900 West. Don't miss the Rocky Mountain Gun Show March 16th and 17th at the Mountain America Expo Center in Sandy. Get 500 rounds of 9mm ammo for just $95. RockyMountainGunshow.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Our KSL weather, the winds will continue today and tomorrow along the northern Wasatch Front, but not as the same level as last night. Otherwise, dry weather in northern Utah, additional rain and snow in the south. And right now, we're at 52 degrees with sunny skies. I'm Dan Bonas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, the news of the day came out earlier this morning when a judge in Georgia declared that the Fulton County District Attorney, Fani Willis, could stay on the case as long as the prosecutor, which she had appointed, Nathan Wade, was not. So it was sort of an interesting ruling from the judge. It was a little bit of a split the baby moment and kind of gave him the choice of, hey, one of you has to go just for the view and the perception of impropriety. And so I thought that was an interesting ruling by Judge Scott McAfee in the Fulton Superior Court. And he really did cut out that middle path in terms of either removing Miss Willis for a conflict of interest or removing the Nathan Wade, who was the attorney. So as we look at that, assuming the prosecutor, and so as we look at how that broke down, and we've, of course, found out to no one's surprise, absolutely no one's surprise, just within the last hour, Nathan Wade, the prosecutor that was appointed by the district attorney, has stepped down from the case. So no shocker there. Everyone was just, the over-under was on how long it would actually take. Would it be within the first 5 minutes of the ruling? Would it be before the sun goes down at the end of the day? Definitely beat the sun going down. And so Nathan Wade is no longer on that case relating to the former president and what took place following the election in 2020. Now, I want to get to some of the other components to all of this, some of which are troubling to me and worrisome to me. And things that I think we've been missing in the conversation of all of this. Of course, the fact that these two had a relationship which they sort of leaked out slowly, denied, changed the timeline, okay, fine, and then here we are. And to me, that is where the problem began, is you've got to protect the institutions. We've talked about it a lot during this entire week in terms of the trust in institutions by the American people. And here you have a case against a former president, a significant case with significant consequences. And most experts around the country believe of all the cases that the former president is facing, the Georgia case is the one that has the biggest problems for the former president and the biggest ramifications in terms of the 2024 election. And so here you have a very high-profile case, very high-stakes case, one that is very important to the public. And no one's been talking about what the case actually is because all the conversations have been around the district attorney and the prosecutor. And what they did or didn't do, what they said or didn't say, what they testified of and alluded to, but often skirted, as this was being decided, whether there was a conflict of interest. So all that does is undermines the confidence in the process. And it allows former President Trump to continue on a very grievance message that the system is rigged, that that's why you need me to be in there to fight for you. And so in many cases, it has played into the strategy of the Trump campaign. And so here's the thing that I keep coming back to today. So here we've had all of this time pass by. It's very clear now that there's no chance that this case will be heard before the November election. And I am sure that even with this decision today by Judge McAfee in Fulton Superior Court, even with that, I'm sure that the Trump campaign will appeal because they want both of them thrown off the case, because then the case really unravels and they have to start over. Even without that, it is going to be most likely 2025 before anything significant can be done. So with all of that as a backdrop, the ultimate question becomes, what's in the best interest of the country? And I think that both the district attorney, Fani Willis, and the prosecutor, Nathan Wade, were incredibly selfish in not stepping back, stepping aside, stepping down, or stepping back. Months ago, they knew all this was coming. They knew this was going to play out in the court of public opinion, in addition to the court of law, and that what plays out in the court of public opinion is going to undermine the trust and confidence of the American people in the process, which ultimately will undermine the credibility of the result in the end. And so why? Why couldn't District Attorney Willis or Prosecutor Wade have said, for the good of the case, for the good of the people that we represent and that we're supposed to be doing the work for, we'll step aside? But because of the appeal of having a platform and a national stage and all that means in terms of book deals and television and all the things, all the trappings of power, they both stayed in. And now the only choice was for one of them to step down, because that's what the judge ruled. He said, you both can't be there, so one of you have to step down. So they really didn't have a choice in the end. They didn't win the case to stay on the case. And now, as a result, rather than having more clarity in terms of where we are, we have more confusion, we have a lot of chatter and clamor, and we continue to undermine trust. And this is why, now more than ever, we need people who are willing to have the kind of political courage, personal courage, to not just do what's in their own best interest. Anybody can do that. And we all do that a lot, by the way. But real leaders, true leaders, authentic leaders, the leaders that we ought to be showcasing and highlighting and celebrating and emulating, are those who have real courage. Who say, yeah, I could stay on. I could stay in. I can get a bigger paycheck. I can get a book deal. But for the good of the institution and the trust of the American people, I'm going to do what's best for them. And we don't have very many people left like that. And that's part of the reason why trust in our institutions and in our elected officials and those in high office is at an all-time low. I go back to a sit-down conversation I had with Bob Woodward and his conversations with former President Gerald Ford. And for years, for decades, Bob Woodward believed that there was a deal between Nixon and Ford. The presidency for a pass. And it was only very late in Ford's life that Bob Woodward came to understand that there was no deal, because Gerald Ford didn't need a deal, because he was going to do what was best for the country, even though it would cost him a re-election and 4 years in the White House. But that's what we got to get back to. We'll be right back.
Derek Overstreet, founder of the New Millennium Group. We're a financial planning firm. Listen, we're fiduciaries. We have advisors standing by right now to take your call. That's 888-999-6370, 888-999-6370. The reason you're going to want to call is we're going to help you retire 3 to 5 years before you thought possible. Now, imagine how that would be if you could actually retire 3 to 5 years sooner than your plan was. The way we do this is by putting together a step-by-step plan, taking into consideration any rental properties that you have, any pension income that you have, your Social Security. Listen, we put that all together for you in writing. It will allow us to build your income based on inflation. You know, inflation has been rapidly rising. You and I both need a plan that whatever we start out our income at, in 5 or 10 years, we're going to need 40% more income. So if you're one of those people listening and you'd like a plan in writing, give us a call at 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370, or go to utahsfinancialplanner.com.
Sneezing, coughing, stuffy nose, runny nose, postnasal drip, interrupted sleeping. I was groggy at the end of the day.
Allergies and sinus congestion were making Jana miserable. Then, a friend recommended Navage. Navage provides immediate drug-free congestion relief, flushing your nasal passages with refreshing saline and sucking out mucus, germs, and other airborne irritants. Navage helps you breathe easier, sleep better, and feel your best right away.
Navage gave me instant relief. I didn't have to wait 30 minutes. I didn't have to wait an hour, 90 minutes. I didn't have to wait a minute. I ran the rinse and I felt better.
Stop suffering from congestion and start breathing and feeling your best again with Navage. Navage.
I've had people ask me how I find relief, and I tell them Navage immediately. This thing is amazing.
Navage is available at Navage.com or at Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, and Rite Aid.
Only one type of burger. For every pallet. Fries are extra. Large in size. We've got the shakes. Going over the brim.
Hey, this is Chris from JCW's. Put a positive, delicious spin on your day at any one of our 5 locations. In Lehigh, American Fork, Provo, South Jordan, or Harriman. JCW's, quality and a lot of it.
Good morning. I'm the 40% off window company.
40% off? Of what?
Hey, 40% off.
Yeah, I'll bet it's your biggest sale of the year. This week only, because you need a model home in our neighborhood. Well, nothing. It's baloney. Hi, this is Kathy.
I'm Doug of Window World. When you hear those things, you know you've entered the baloney zone.
Resist the force of the baloney zone.
Find Window World online at windowworldutah.com.
Or call Window World at 281-8111. That's 281-8111.
And that's no baloney.
Ladies, Dave's Bernina makes it easy for you to own a new Bernina quilting machine.
We're celebrating National Quilting Month with extraordinary pricing and offers.
At Dave's Bernina in Provo and St. George.
Saved on the Bernina Q Series quilting machine.
All machines are on sale with extra discounts.
Such as $5,999 on the Bernina Q16 on adjustable folding table, $8,999 on the Bernina Q16 on 10-inch studio frame. Take advantage of 2.99 APR financing for 60 months on select machines. Buy the all-new Bernina L890QE Serger. Receive a free gift package worth over $1,600.
During this sale, treat your sewing love to some sweet extras with special discounts and super savings on Bernina machines and accessories.
Special pricing on Bernina 475 and 770 Cape machines. A great value.
Dave's Bernina, 2017 North 550 West in Provo and 691 East St. George Boulevard.
Advanced Window Products offers grabber window covers. High-end quality with the best warranty. Save 30% off when you mention KSL. 801-850-9100 or advancedwindows.com.
Guys, did you know your testosterone affects everything in your system, including how you feel and perform every day? Right now, Revive Men's Health Salt Lake City will check your testosterone for free. Knowing your T levels is the first step in understanding if you have low T. Your testosterone level impacts your energy, libido, sleep, weight, hair loss, mood, and even ED. Maintaining an appropriate T level can change your whole life. Most men start to see changes in their hormone levels in their 30s. Experience and results matter. So what are you waiting for? Get your T levels checked today by local, experienced, and trusted men's health experts. They've helped thousands of men since 2011. They're so confident they can help you, they even guarantee it. Call Revive today and schedule your free testosterone test, free exam, and free consultation. Call Revive Men's Health at 801-263-7777. That's 801-263-7777. Or visit revivemenshealth.com.
The life of a small business owner. Keeping the lights on, calling all the shots. And then there's workplace accidents. 500-degree ovens, rusty nails. Danger lurks around every corner. Workplace accidents can happen, but there is an easy way to keep your employees covered. Talk to your agent about workers' comp coverage from Pi, or go to piinsurance.com and get a quote. Safety first, then Pi Insurance. Individual rates, offerings, and savings may vary, subject to policy terms and conditions. Not available in all states and situations.
Pizza's here. Oh, great. I'd love some, but I'm worried about my stomach issues.
If you're worried about having diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools, it may not just be stomach issues. It could be a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and talk to your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
Getting quality employees to fill positions in your company is essential, but finding those people can be a major hassle unless you use ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter makes finding quality people a breeze. ZipRecruiter's advanced technology identifies candidates with the right skills, sends you great matches, then you can easily invite them to apply. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. See for yourself. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/free to try ZipRecruiter for free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bonas. First, the bones of a hiker who disappeared 3 years ago in the Book Cliffs have now been found. Second, Bad Bunny's had enough of a bootlegger who is showing video from a concert in Salt Lake City on YouTube. And third, food and other supplies for Palestinians trapped in Gaza is starting to arrive by sea. Right now, 52 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today, as it always is. And as we round out the program today and round out the week, it's interesting to me. We keep coming back to some of these challenging things. Of course, the coverage today around what's taking place in Georgia. And it goes back to something that George Washington said in his farewell address to the nation. He called on free government to exemplify the attributes that will make its citizens proud and command the respect of the world. The kind of public and private morality that Washington called for in our leaders in this country didn't require them to be perfect, but it did necessitate integrity and congruency regardless of the situation, because otherwise you have this thing that we call at my house the absolute predictability of consequences. There's always an absolute predictability of consequences. Put your hand on a stove, doesn't matter how you think or what you do, it's going to burn you. Absolute predictability of consequences. And we talk about that with our grandchildren now, usually when they're misbehaving. There's that absolute predictability of consequences. And so we saw that play out in this Georgia case. And neither Fani Willis or Nathan Wade was willing to accept the absolute predictability of consequences. Nor did they have the courage to do the thing that would have been the best thing for the people that they're supposed to be working for. If the idea is to get to truth and justice, they should have stepped aside. They didn't. It ended up going to court. The judge today kind of split the baby and said, well, one of you can stay, but the other has to go. And so now we have all the drama and all the uncertainty and all the chatter that goes around that creates confusion rather than clarity in the case. Remember, the case is what matters in the end. Getting to the truth and having transparency is what matters in the end. But if you don't have people who have the courage to step up to that, then we just get more political theater. So we have to get back to that. So things like that get me thinking in terms of what is it going to take to get back to that space. Now, that can all be a little discouraging, a little depressing, to be sure. But I also have to finish off the week with the fact that I've never been more bullish and more confident about the future of the country. Yeah, politics is broken. Politics is an absolute mess right now. But I have absolute confidence in the future because of the American people. And as Gaylord Swim once noted, the political process requires strong advocates, certainly. So you got to be tough to be in the arena, no question about that. But the best have this counterbalancing sense of humility and civility and dialogue. And when we just follow the political course, that's where we end up where we are today. Power struggles, pride, vanity, egocentric ambition. None of that ends well. And it ends up with all kinds of strident voices, character assassination, protest demonstration, cloakroom deals. We've heard a lot about those this week, and corruption. So, needless to say, there's a lot to work on in this country and in our own communities. And yet, I remained absolutely convinced that our best days are still ahead of us. And so why the optimism? Well, it doesn't have anything to do with glasses that are half full or half empty or rose-colored, for that matter. It has everything to do with the American people and the principles that I see all across the country. I have traveled all around this country, and I've watched people live the core principles, the values, the ideas that drive freedom, that fuel free enterprise, empower citizen civil society at its best. And those aren't liberal ideas, and those aren't conservative ideas. They're American ideas. And I've seen them. I've seen them manifest in big cities. I've seen them in rural communities. I've seen them right here in our state. I've heard these principles echo from podiums in convention centers and pulpits of churches. I've felt that. I've felt those strains of that American voice that is uniquely American, that these values matter. And I've heard those values from children at school. I've heard them from leaders of all kinds in our communities. That's what moves the nation. And granted, there are some political elites, media outlets, well-connected interests who want all of us to believe that we're just too fractured, too divided as a nation, to use those principles and ideas to address the big issues of the day. And I am just so convinced we can take on health care and immigration and religious liberty and LGBTQ rights and all of those things. We can deal with all of those things that seem to be so contentious. But if we listen to those who have a vested interest, who are less concerned about principle and are more concerned about power, if we let them drive the conversations, we'll end up in the ditch. And it's where a lot of us feel we are. I happen to reject this idea that we're on the verge of a civil war. I think we're on the verge of a civil debate if we do it right. And yes, it will be a very raucous and rambunctious presidential cycle.